32 years ago, a 6-year-old girl named Avery Jean Willis vanished from her backyard in Gainesville, Florida, just minutes after her mother called her in for dinner. No trace, no witnesses, only a small sandal left by a rain-soaked wooden fence led police to believe she was abducted. Authorities suspected a former military man acquainted with the victim's mother was involved, but with no body and no evidence, the investigation eventually hit a dead end. Yet, over nearly 3 decades, the cold case unit investigators never gave up, believing that somewhere within the old evidence lay clues to the truth. Then one day, when next-generation DNA technology was applied, they uncovered a detail overlooked for nearly 30 years, a detail that changed the entire case and left Florida stunned. Before diving into this shocking story, let us know where you're watching from, and if you love true crime, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to stay updated on upcoming cases. Gainesville, Florida, a humid afternoon before a storm. The suburban neighborhood was quiet, with long shadows of oak trees stretching over old mobile homes. The air was thick with the smell of wet grass and damp earth, crickets mingling with distant thunder. In the backyard of house number 14, 6-year-old Avery Jean Willis was playing with her dog Rex, a brown mutt wagging its tail incessantly. Wearing a faded floral dress, her blonde hair tied loosely, she ran around the wooden fence, giggling. Her mother, Sharon Willis, stood in the kitchen, the faint sound of the evening news on the radio mixing with the smell of frying onions. Occasionally, she glanced out the window, saw her daughter still in the yard, and continued chopping vegetables reassured. The wind shifted, dark clouds rolled in from the swamp, and thunder grew closer. Sharon opened the back door to call her daughter in before the rain hit. No response, only the sound of the wind and Rex's brief bark, then silence. She stepped into the yard, scanning the tall grass. The small wooden gate at the corner of the fence was ajar, creaking lightly. Avery's thin jacket still hung on the back of a chair, her glass of orange juice on the porch step still cool. Sharon quickened her pace, calling her daughter's name louder. No one answered. She circled to the front, asked a neighbor watering plants. They shook their head, saying they hadn't seen the girl since early afternoon. The first gust of rain-heavy wind whipped through, soaking the curtains. Sharon ran through the yard to the neighboring houses, her heart pounding. Rain began pattering on the tin roofs. Rex circled the fence, barking toward the dirt road behind, where no one was visible. Sharon stopped, drenched, hands trembling as she stared at the still open back door, as if someone had just rushed out. The house was eerily silent. In the living room, she fought to steady her breathing, her heart thumping in her throat. Grabbing the phone, her shaking fingers dialed a familiar number, her voice hoarse with fear as she told the operator, "My daughter, she's gone. I can't find her anymore." On the other end, the Alachua County Sheriff's Office dispatcher calmed her, instructing her to stay calm and remain in the house. The call was relayed to the nearest patrol unit. Outside, the rain intensified, lightning flashing through the windows. Within 10 minutes, 2 beams of headlights cut through the downpour, stopping in front of the Willis family's mobile home. The car doors opened, and 2 officers, Deputy Collins and Harper, stepped out, their caps already soaked. Sharon answered their knock, hands still shaking, nightgown clinging with rainwater. "Mrs. Sharon Willis?" Collins asked. "Yes, I called about my missing daughter. She's only 6. Her voice broke. Collins nodded gently, asking her to sit, while Harper checked the back door. In the kitchen, the radio played softly, dinner half-cooked, the wall clock showing just past 6:30. On the porch, wet curtains clung to the wooden frame, the back door ajar. Harper swept his flashlight across the backyard, matted grass, rain blurring footprints. A glint caught his eye, a pink plastic sandal caked in mud by the fence. No adult shoe prints, just a few indistinct impressions. Possible evidence found, Harper reported over the radio. Collins joined him outside, setting up a temporary perimeter. They asked Sharon to stay indoors to avoid disturbing the scene. She clutched Avery's school photo, her eyes vacant. The rain grew heavier, thunder rumbling around the mobile homes, shaking everything. Harper walked along the fence, spotting the small wooden gate ajar, its hinges rusted. He crouched, noticing a faint thread of fabric caught on the wire mesh, pale pink. He tweezed it into an evidence bag. Collins returned to the house, asking quick questions. "Did you hear any cars? See anyone unusual this afternoon?" Sharon shook her head, tears mixing with rain on her face. "No, just the dog barking." Then it stopped. The officers exchanged a glance, a silent understanding. This wasn't a typical missing child case. Collins radioed the station. Possible abduction. Child missing. Location, Waldo Road, Gainesville. 10 minutes later, red lights flashed in the yard. A crime scene van arrived, followed by an SUV from the emergency search team. They cordoned off the area, photographed around the fence, and marked the sandal, fabric, and open gate with reflective stakes. A young officer held a tarp to shield a low patch of ground from the rain. Inside, Sharon sat motionless, hearing Lieutenant Tom Rayner's voice crackle over the radio. "Set a half-mile lockdown radius, no one in or out. Call in the K9 unit and search chopper." Sirens faded into the pounding rain, blue and red lights reflecting off the windows, bathing the house in cold streaks. Harper scanned the yard one last time, jotting in his notebook, no signs of struggle, no gasoline smell, no foreign objects, one sandal, one fabric thread, fence gate open. Looking up, he saw the rain had nearly erased the muddy tracks. He closed his notebook and glanced at his partner. "If someone took her," Collins said quietly. They picked the perfect moment. Rayner stood on the porch, eyeing the rain-blurred yard, then gave a curt order. "Start the scene report. Prep for the criminal investigation team. This is no longer a lost child case." Outside, the rain grew fiercer. Lightning illuminated the drenched neighborhood as officers strung up cordons and set up a command tent in front of the Willis home. Patrol car headlights swept the flooded road. Rayner stepped out, pulling on his cap, his voice low and firm over the radio. "K9 unit, deploy west. Team 2, sweep around Waldo Road. All units, watch the routes to Payne's Prairie." The air was thick with diesel, mud, and damp metal. 2 K9 dogs, Duke and Hera, were unleashed, noses low near the sandal and fabric. Sharon Willis sat in a patrol car, staring out through the fogged window, hands gripping her daughter's photo. When Rayner asked a question, she only nodded faintly, as if nothing around her felt real. The first scent trail led to the dirt road behind the fence, through knee-high weeds, toward the edge of Payne's Prairie swamp. A still, black expanse, where headlights only reached a few dozen meters before being swallowed by misty rain. 2 officers with halogen lamps and thermal scanners searched the gaps, calling Avery's name, their voices lost in the wind. Only thunder and the hum of crickets answered. By just past 8 p.m., the search expanded to a 1-mile radius. Town volunteers arrived, some with flashlights, others with raincoats, a few young couples with dogs. Rayner set up a small tent for coordination. A map was pinned to the van door, red dots marking searched areas. "The wind's shifting, we need to move fast before the scent's gone," Harper said, crouching by a patch of reeds. Duke growled softly, tugging his leash, then barked sharply. Harper followed with his flashlight, spotting a small glint under a muddy tree root, a cracked pink plastic bracelet, hand-scrawled with Avery in pen. He gloved it, sealed it in a waterproof evidence bag. "Personal item confirmed," he radioed. Rayner replied curtly, "Seal it, mark the coordinates." The team fanned out, combing the area around the bracelet. Nothing else, no clothes, no blood, no adult tracks, just scattered floodwater, erasing everything. The rain intensified, flashlights reflecting into white mist. From afar, a helicopter's engine roared. Its spotlight swept the sodden field, glinting off the swamp. Rayner checked his watch, voice weary. "They won't last long out there. This rain kills all traces." Harper handed over the bracelet bag. "We can test for DNA or prints, but I doubt there's more to follow." Rayner paused, then said, "Mark this as probable abduction site. Near 10 p.m. The sky was pitch black. Rain turned the dirt road into a slick mudslide. A group of volunteers got stuck in a shallow ditch, pulling each other out. Rescuers set up gas-powered floodlights, but the harsh glow only heightened the unease. Gusts rattled the tarps, cold droplets, stinging faces. In the distance, Duke still tried tracking toward the swamp, but the scent was too faint. The dog stopped, whimpering, looking up at its handler helplessly. Harper patted its neck, murmuring, "All right, buddy. Nothing more tonight." He glanced back at the small house, now surrounded by police cars and yellow tape, an island of light in the dark. Inside the car, Sharon sat silent, eyes fixed on the half-closed back door. Near midnight, Rayner ordered a temporary pullback. "The rain's ruining the scene. We'll return at dawn. Log the map, photograph everything." Technicians packed up, sealed evidence bags, noting the time 23:48. The bracelet was loaded onto a van, labeled Exhibit #07, found 0.2 miles west of residence. As the convoy left, only the dim light of a patrol car remained. Rain pattered on its hood, blending with swamp insects into a chilling drone. Harper stood under the porch, watching water erase the last muddy traces by the fence. He knew by morning the yard would be clean, as if nothing had happened. In his waterlogged notebook, he wrote the night's final report. No physical struggle observed. Child missing. Evidence suggests forced removal, possible abduction. Dawn in Gainesville rose slowly, the sky gray and drizzling. Waldo Road remained sealed, wet yellow tape swaying in the breeze. The ground was pocked with boot prints and tire tracks from the night before. When Alachua County's forensic white van parked in front of the Willis home, Sharon was already in a patrol car, eyes ringed with exhaustion, clutching a cold coffee. She no longer cried, just stared at the backyard where last night's floodlights had lit up the sky. Two forensic techs, Daniel Cross and Mara Ortiz, stepped out with gear bags, cameras, and soil kits. They set up a tarp from the fence to the back door to shield the core area from rain. Lieutenant Rayner pointed to the wooden gate where Harper found the fabric. "This is our assumed exit point," he said. Ortiz nodded, fitting a macro lens, snapping close-ups of hinges, latches, metal scratches, and water streaks. Harper opened his notebook, showing Cross the sandal and bracelet locations. They measured distances with a laser, logged GPS coordinates, and sketched the yard. Under dark mud, they found faint oval depressions, about an inch deep, tire tracks the rain hadn't fully erased. Cross framed them, photographed them, and poured specialty silicone to cast molds. "Not a sedan. Tire width and tread suggest a light pickup truck," he said steadily. Rayner frowned. "Cross-check with registered vehicles in the area. Start with Goodyear Wrangler, size 235. Near the fence gate, Ortiz spotted an adult shoe print, leading out from the yard. Part was blurred, but the sole's V pattern was clear, old military-style boots. She used a scale ruler, took close-ups, and cast a second mold. "Size 10 or 11, male," Ortiz said. Harper noted, possible military-type footwear. While the techs worked, Sharon sat quietly in the car, calmed by a social worker. Beyond the cordon, neighbors gathered, their eyes mixing worry and curiosity. A middle-aged man whispered to the gate officer, "I saw a silver truck last night, driving slow by the houses, but I don't recall the plate." The officer logged it and passed it to Rayner. He glanced at Harper. The mother said she heard no car. If there was one, the driver might have cut the engine at the corner. Cross finished collecting soil from the tire tracks, sealing it in metal boxes. Ortiz bagged the pink fabric from last night's evidence, and a new thread found under a tree by the fence. Both were thin polyester cotton blends, faded, likely from the same children's dress. By noon, as the rain stopped, the team flew a drone for aerial shots. Images showed tire tracks, starting at the dirt path behind the house, cutting through weeds, then fading into a small road to the highway. "If the vehicle went that way," Harper said, "there are only two exits north to 441 or south to the swamp." Rayner nodded. "Both should have traffic cams, if any. Call state transportation, get yesterday's footage. The forensic team set up a workbench in the van. Ortiz laid out samples on steel trays, fabric, mud, tire casts, shoe prints. She signed the log, sealing with red tape. Under destination, she wrote, Florida Department of Law Enforcement, Forensic Lab, Tallahassee. When done, Rayner gathered the team under the dripping porch. As of now, he said, this is classified missing child. Potential abduction. All samples go to the state today. I want a preliminary report on my desk by 18 o'clock. Harper nodded, closing his notebook, the metallic smell of wet earth lingering. Before leaving, Ortiz glanced at the small house, its back door now sealed with red tape. Inside, Avery's tiny chair sat by the dining table, holding an unfinished coloring book, its last page a half-colored orange butterfly. The sight silenced the team for a moment before they turned away, packing up. That afternoon, the evidence crate was loaded onto a white FDL Crime Lab truck, leaving the neighborhood with a rumbling engine. Rayner watched, hands clasped behind his back. The rain had stopped, but the sky remained heavy. In his notebook, a new line in blue ink, written in sharp, deliberate strokes. Case #93 FL 147. Missing child investigation officially opened. The next morning, as news of the 6-year-old's disappearance spread across Gainesville, the small Waldo Road neighborhood grew unusually busy. Patrol cars lined the dirt road. Officers knocked on doors, taking statements, notes, and photos. Lieutenant Rayner ordered witness interviews within a 1-mile radius of the Willis home. He knew the first hours could steer the entire investigation. The first witness was Charlie Rowe, 52, a delivery driver for a local grocery. He passed Waldo Road every afternoon, delivering milk and bread. In the interview van, he removed his cap, recounting slowly. I saw the girl that day around 6. She was playing with a little dog near the fence. I waved, she smiled back, then ran behind the house. No one else was around, at least not that I saw. Harper pressed, hear any vehicles? A door slam, engine nearby? Charlie thought. Just a heavy engine, maybe a pickup, but the rain started, so I didn't linger. I drove off right after. Harper noted the time, route, and had him sign the statement. The second witness, Lorraine Beach, 67, lived 2 houses from the Willises. She answered in a cotton robe, eyes sunken from sleeplessness. I heard about the missing girl, she said softly. Awful thing. Rayner explained they needed her account. She nodded, recalling, that afternoon, I was watering plants out front. I saw a silver pickup, old model, moving slowly through the neighborhood. The driver was a man, short hair, sunglasses. I thought he was looking for a delivery address, so I didn't think much of it. But when the truck circled back a second time, it felt odd. The passenger window was down, like someone was talking to a kid. I heard faint children's laughter, then the truck drove south. Did you see the license plate? Harper asked. She shook her head. No, it was getting dark, rain starting, headlights glaring. But I remember a bald eagle decal on the back corner. The third witness was mentioned by neighborhood kids. An 8-year-old boy named Toby Lambert, son of a nearby auto shop owner, said that afternoon, he saw a man in a soldier's shirt, talking to Avery. When police visited, Toby sat in the kitchen, legs swinging on a chair, holding a small dog. He recounted, I saw him through the fence. He bent down, gave something to Avery, maybe candy. Then he said something, and Avery laughed. The dog barked a few times, then he opened the gate and went into the yard. Harper asked, did you see where he went after? Toby shook his head. No, sir. My mom called me inside because of the rain. When I looked back, they were gone. Police showed Toby pictures of military uniforms. He pointed to a grayish-blue Navy jacket. It looked most like this. By noon, statements were compiled and printed at the command table. Rayner, Harper, and Ortiz sat around a neighborhood map, circling witness locations. All aligned between 5:30 and 6 o'clock, Ortiz said. Right before the heavy rain, Rayner nodded. And all 3 describe a man, short hair, in a military or uniform shirt, driving a silver pickup. The pattern's consistent. A sketch artist from the county office was called in. Lorraine and Toby were brought to a specialized van to assist. Under white light, they described details: angular face, close cropped hair, pointed chin, cold eyes. After 2 hours, the first sketch was done. A man about 30, short hair, in a gray navy shirt, his calm expression chilling. Looking at the sketch, Harper realized something. This isn't a complete stranger. This area had a few discharged veterans. I'll check residency lists. Rayner nodded, his eyes heavy. He pinned the sketch to the command board under bold red text, possible suspect. Male 30, 35, short hair, navy shirt, silver pickup truck. Outside, rain started again. Yellow tape still surrounded the small house, its back door sealed with red tape. The team knew every passing hour reduced the chance of finding the child safe. But now they had something: a face, a vehicle direction, a description enough to start tracking. Rayner's internal log noted briefly: pattern, consistent with abduction. Suspect, likely ex-military. Continue cross-reference with Navy discharge records. The suspect sketch was circulated internally that afternoon. Within hours, the image of a short-haired man in a gray Navy shirt appeared on Florida's statewide bulletin, coded as unknown male #471993 Waldo. Lieutenant Rayner ordered the data team to review ex-military personnel living or working within 50 miles of Gainesville, especially those discharged in the last 6 months. If he's wearing a military shirt, he said, it's likely real, not a costume. That habit's rare in civilians. In the temporary office behind the Willis house, pale neon light illuminated a wall map. Harper stood by the fax, checking pages from Naval Station Mayport in Jacksonville, which held discharge records. Dozens of names appeared. Most had left the state, but 4 had lived in Alachua County. One name stopped the team: Marcus Allen Dane, born 1964, former Marine, mechanical technician, honorably discharged in January 1993. Just 2 months before Avery's disappearance. Harper read aloud a note in the file: pre-enlistment address, 1129 Waldo Road, Gainesville. Rayner looked up, same street as the Willises. He requested more civilian data. An hour later, county tax records showed Dane rented an apartment in Gainesville from 1986 to 1989, 3 blocks from the Willis home. Another detail silenced the room. Under personal references, the file listed Sharon Willis, family acquaintance. Harper glanced at Rayner, voice low: that's the victim's mother. Rayner paused, then said, if they knew each other, he knew the house, their routines. That explains how he entered, without suspicion. Dane's record was clean. 8 years in the Marines, no infractions, served in Okinawa and Guantanamo Bay. After discharge, he registered a small auto repair business in Jacksonville, over 70 miles from Gainesville. His discharge form listed his desired job: automotive mechanic, prefers quiet work. No family address, no marriage, no children. Harper noted: solitary, stable technical skills, access to vehicles. Rayner printed Dane's military photo, placing it beside the witness sketch. The room went quiet. Features nearly matched: high cheekbones, square jaw, deep eyes, close cropped hair. No more questions, Rayner said. We have our man. At 5 p.m., he signed a summons for Marcus Dane's questioning, faxed to the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. A task force was dispatched that night. Harper and FBI agent Crowley, covering North Florida, handled the initial interview. The next morning, they arrived at Dane's Auto and Marine on Atlantic Boulevard. The shop was open, reeking of oil and rubber. Dane emerged from the back, in dark blue mechanic overalls, Miss Dane embroidered on the chest. When Crowley flashed his badge, Dane showed brief surprise, then nodded. I know why you're here. The missing girl. His voice was calm, unflinching. He invited them into a small office. Walls covered with old military calendars and a Florida map. Harper began. You lived on Waldo Road, right? Yes, long ago, over 10 years. You know Sharon Willis? Dane paused for a second, then said, Yes, she was a neighbor back then. I fixed her family's car a few times, but we haven't talked since I enlisted. Harper noted his body language, eyes shifting right, hands clenching slightly, clear defensive signs. Crowley pressed, Where were you the afternoon of March 12th? Pensacola. I have gas receipts, can prove it. He spoke quickly, almost rehearsed. Harper jotted down, but a mental flag went up. Alibi too polished. As they left, Harper paused at the silver Dodge Ram pickup parked out front. Mud caked the tires, medium tread Goodyear Wrangler, 235S. He crouched, noting they matched the crime scene cast. He snapped a photo with a mini camera. That evening, they sent the report to Gainesville. Rayner read it, then looked up. Vehicle matches, location close, connected to the victim, but not enough for an arrest. We need physical evidence. He paused, eyeing the map, pointing to the route from Jacksonville to Gainesville. If he was in Pensacola like he claims, he drove through here that morning. Check all gas receipts, traffic cams on Highway 24. 3 days later, results came back. Dane's gas receipt timestamp didn't align. Pensacola at 11:47 p.m. But bank data confirmed the transaction processed in Gainesville at 9:12 p.m. Marcus Dane was in the city the night Avery vanished. Rayner's eyes darkened as he read. Start surveillance. Don't let him leave the state. He's our top suspect. He added a red note to the file. Subject Marcus Allen Dane, former Marine. Possible abduction suspect. Initiate surveillance under case hash 93 FL 147. That night, the Alachua County Command Office stayed lit. Outside, early summer rain lashed the windows, and the Gainesville map on the wall was studded with red pins tracing Dane's movements the prior week. The summons was faxed to Jacksonville Sheriff's Office overnight. The next morning, the Jacksonville interrogation room was cold and starkly lit. On the table, a water cup, a slowly turning tape recorder, and a thick file labeled Marcus Allen Dane. Case hash 93 FL 147. Harper sat across, Rayner behind one-way glass, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the man entering. Marcus Dane arrived on time, neat blue shirt, short hair clean shaven. He set his keys on the table, voice calm, almost rehearsed. I've cooperated from the start. I hope we can wrap this up today. Harper looked him in the eye. You said March 12th, you were in Pensacola, nearly 300 miles from Gainesville. You sure? Dane nodded, tilting his head. Picking up parts for the shop. I have gas receipts and a motel bill. Harper slid a photocopy forward, tapping the timestamp. This says 11:47 p.m., Pensacola. But the transaction processed in Gainesville at 9:12 p.m. Explain that. Dane stared at the paper, silent for seconds, then shrugged. Maybe the gas station system glitched. You know how those old setups are, always messing up. Harper didn't reply, flipping a page. What about phone records? Your signal pinged a tower north of Gainesville that morning, 9:41 a.m., calling a Mayport base number. Got another explanation? Dane leaned back, hands clasped. I passed through Gainesville on my way to Pensacola. No law against driving through my old town. A thin smile crossed his lips, unsettling Harper. Rayner entered unannounced, sat, and opened the file, sliding Lorraine Beach and Toby Lambert's sketch across. Know this man? Dane glanced. No, they described him in a navy shirt, talking to Avery Willis minutes before she vanished. Rayner leaned in, eyes locked. Dane looked longer, then said softly, I ditched uniforms long ago. I don't know anything about it. The room grew heavy. The wall clock's ticks were deafening. Harper shifted topics. You were Sharon Willis's neighbor, right? Any recent contact? Dane shook his head, eyes cold. No, I knew her from fixing cars. I was young, helped neighbors, but we had nothing. If she says otherwise, that's her story. Rayner raised an eyebrow. She didn't say anything. But I think you know why we're here. Her daughter's gone, and you're the only one who knew that house, even lived there. Dane gave a faint laugh, eyes tense. You're saying I kidnapped a kid? I'm a mechanic, not a criminal. Harper replied softly. We didn't say that. We just want to know why tracks from a silver pickup, Goodyear 235 tires, match your truck, found in the Willis backyard the night she disappeared. Dane leaned forward, voice rising. Matching tires. Half this town drives those. If you want to charge me, go ahead. You've got nothing. Rayner closed the file. You're right. We don't have enough. He stood, gaze icy. But know this, you're officially under watch. Every move, every call, monitored. Dane kept his stiff smile. I'm not going anywhere. Want to check my shop? Go ahead. I've got nothing to hide. The interview lasted nearly 2 hours. As Dane left, Harper noticed his shoulders tense briefly, a reflex of someone suppressing something. After the door closed, Rayner sighed. He's trained to stay calm. Military habit. But he's hiding something. Harper replayed the tape, pausing where Dane said, I passed through Gainesville. His tone shifted. Quick. Dry. 3 words. A brief loss of control. He might be lying, Harper said. But only partly. Maybe he did pass through. But not just passing. That afternoon, techs finished inspecting Dane's silver Dodge Ram at the shop lot. Initial results. No blood. No matching fabric fibers. But they found a fresh scratch on the rear bumper, dried mud under the chassis. Soil samples were sealed, sent for comparison with the crime scene. Rayner reported to the DA's office. They reviewed all evidence, mismatched gas receipt, phone data, tire tracks, witness statements, but it was all circumstantial. When the call ended, Rayner sat silently, pen tapping the file slowly. We've got nothing solid, just gut. Harper nodded, eyes on the sketch pinned to the wall. Finally, Rayner wrote in red at the file's end, Marcus Allen Dane, person of interest. Continue surveillance. Maintain pressure. Outside, rain fell again. Long drops slid down the windows, reflecting the neon glow of the investigation room. In the dark, the sketched man's cold smile seemed to know he was still one step ahead. 2 days after Dane's interview, when the DA confirmed insufficient evidence for detention, Lieutenant Rayner returned to Gainesville, face grim. He knew witness statements weren't enough, so the investigation had to return to the only lead, the scene. An urgent meeting was held in the command van parked outside the Willis house, amid a spring downpour. We're reopening the search, he said firmly. Triple the radius, focus on the tire tracks leading to Payne's Prairie Swamp. If he took the girl, that's the only route out of the neighborhood unseen. The next morning, over 40 police, firefighters and volunteers assembled. The area was gridded on a map, numbered 1 to 12. Harper led Sector 3, near the old dirt road and low pine forest. Under heavy clouds, they moved through thick mud, using rakes, probes, flashlights, and metal detectors. Radios crackled amid insects. Sector 4, nothing found. Sector 7, needs backup to recheck east. Near noon, Harper paused at a low patch by the swamp's edge. Something stood out among rotting leaves, small, soft, muddy, with a faded pattern. He gloved it, lifting carefully, a pink and white floral cloth fragment, torn at an angle, cotton polyester blend. He turned it over, fine fibers, straight industrial stitching, like a child's dress. Call forensics, he said, over the radio, voice hoarse from the rain. When Ortiz and the forensic team arrived, they set up a tarp, photographed, and logged precise coordinates. This matches the fiber from the Willis fence, Ortiz said, comparing by eye. Harper watched, heart pounding, but kept his voice steady. Mark as evidence 09. Cloth fragment, found near Payne's Prairie perimeter. The sample was sealed in a moisture-proof bag. Other teams searched the area, finding only deep ruts, possibly old tire tracks, blurred by floods. Payne's Prairie, a natural floodplain with countless small channels, could hide anything if someone drove through and rain followed. Harper stared at the murky water, where headlight ripples had danced that first night, a familiar feeling rising. They were circling back to the start. That afternoon, the cloth was rushed to FDLE's Tallahassee lab. Ortiz noted in the log, compared to sample 03, fence fiber. As the convoy returned, the rain stopped, pale sunset, glinting on mud, reeking of algae. Sharon Willis, staying with nearby relatives, stepped out as police cars passed. She didn't ask, just watched, hands gripping her coat. Harper didn't stop. He knew there was no news yet. 2 days later, the lab report arrived. Dr. Karen Elliott, fiber analyst, wrote, "Material match cotton poly blend. Color pattern, similar to garment description. Fiber degradation prevents full DNA retrieval, result possible match." Rayner read aloud in the meeting room, then set the paper down. "Not conclusive, but we can't dismiss it. The cloth matches the type, location and movement direction." Harper nodded. If he left it there, maybe the truck got stuck or he ditched it fast. Either way, we've got more pointing to the swamp. Rayner stood before a large map, red pen circling the route from the Willis house to Payne's Prairie, then to Jacksonville northeast. This is the most logical path. If Dane's involved, he left Gainesville the night of March 12th, straight to Jacksonville, about 70 miles. He had time, and he drives a silver pickup. He paused, eyes sharpening. "I want every Highway 24 checkpoint security footage rechecked, even if it's just frames." Ortiz added, "I requested a soil comparison from the mud under Dane's Dodge Ram, results in 3 days." Harper looked at Rayner, voice low. "If it matches, we have our first physical evidence." Outside, light rain pattered on the tin roof. In the field office, smelling of coffee and wet paper, Rayner wrote a brief note in the report's conclusion. "Evidence consistent with abduction route. Suspect connected to military background. Marcus Allen Dane remains primary lead." He set down the pen, eyes on the map. The red line from the small Waldo Road house through the swamp to Jacksonville looked like a thin, deep cut across Florida's green. A straight, clean path with no turn back. In the post-rain quiet, all understood this was no longer a lost child search. It was now a hunt for a military-connected abductor. The following weeks dragged with exhaustion and weight. The Payne's Prairie search ended with no new finds beyond flood-washed mud. The floral cloth, the only potential link to Avery, remained a vague possible match. All leads circled back to dead ends. Tech teams withdrew. Waldo Road returned to its old quiet, with only a weathered "do not enter" active investigation sign fading under rain and sun. Lieutenant Rayner kept surveillance on Marcus Dane in Jacksonville, but by early June, Dane closed his auto shop. His business license was canceled, bank account emptied. An internal report said he left Florida, possibly for Texas or Louisiana. Jacksonville police couldn't hold him without a warrant. "No evidence, no crime," the DA said bluntly. In the final meeting, Rayner tapped the file on the table, face taut. "We're letting him slip, and when he's gone, so is this case." From mid-1993 to early 1994, over 200 tips came in, sightings of a girl at an Ocala gas station, a lost child at Daytona Beach. All checked, all false. Each negative result report thickened the file but thinned hope. Sharon Willis, after months of neighbors' pity and suspicion, left Gainesville for her sisters in Orlando. She stopped attending press briefings, ignored media, leaving one message for police: "If you find her, in any condition, please tell me first." In October 1994, Ellicott County's investigation officially halted the search. A nearly 200-page internal report was filed in the Cold Case Unit, case hash 93FL147. The final assessment read, "Suspect unidentified, no body found, no new evidence. Case suspended pending forensic advancements." Rayner signed, his handwriting sharp and rushed, then closed the file. He stared at the investigation board faded photos, Avery's smiling face, the soldier-shirted man's sketch, the silver pickup. All were taken down, packed into a cardboard box labeled Waldo Road, unsolved. Harper helped carry it to the county archive, a cold room smelling of old paper and rusted metal. Rows of shelves held silent pasts. Rayner placed the box on a low corner, eyed the label, and exhaled, "If someone reopens this someday, at least they'll know where to start." Meanwhile, In Jacksonville, Dane applied for a driver's license in another state. New address: Longview, Texas. A final surveillance report confirmed he left Florida in his old silver Dodge Ram, carrying few belongings and a toolbox. No one knew what he did after, nor any contact with Sharon or Waldo Road. In the federal tracking system, his name was flagged POI, person of interest, but faded among thousands of similar cases. The next summer, Harper transferred to another assignment. Rayner retired early due to heart issues. New officers knew Avery Willis only through archived notes. The electronic file's last update, marked December 1994, held one cold line: no further leads. The case vanished from desks, lying dormant in the dark for nearly 2 decades. Gainesville, and those who lived through that rainy season, slowly learned not to mention the girl with the pink bracelet. In August 2006, Florida's sun scorched. Payne's Prairie Swamp was drier than usual due to a prolonged drought, exposing muddy flats usually submerged. At the preserve's southern edge, conservation workers were widening a new trail for visitors. At noon, when the excavator paused for a shift change, a worker named Eddie Morales felt his shovel hit something hard. He crouched, thinking it was a charred root, but as he brushed away dry soil, something pale, small, and curved emerged. A chill ran down his spine. He carefully lifted it, a small bone, fragile like a child's wrist. The site supervisor immediately called the preserve manager. An hour later, Alachua County Police arrived, setting up a temporary cordon. Lieutenant Sarah Miller, heading the crime scene unit, ordered all construction halted. Under 36-degree heat, the forensic team pitched tarps and marked coordinates. "If this is human bone," she told a colleague, "it's been here a long time." As the thin soil layer was cleared, technicians found a faded floral fabric tangled in roots, and nearby, a small object glinting in the sun, a pink plastic bracelet, lightly cracked at the clasp. Faintly etched in pen were 3 smudged letters: AJW. Ortiz, now FDLE's forensic team lead, got a direct call from the scene. She said one thing: "Hold the position, don't touch anything. I'm coming." 3 hours later, Ortiz arrived with 2 technicians. Kneeling at the dig site, she brushed soil from the bone with a soft brush. Its structure suggested a child, aged 5 to 7. The fabric and bracelet were carefully collected, photographed with scale, and GPS logged. "This matches the 1993 report," Ortiz said, voice low. "Same fabric type, same bracelet color." A young officer nearby whispered, "Think it's the Waldo Road case?" Ortiz didn't answer immediately. She scanned the low-lying area, dry reeds flattened, then replied, "We'll know soon." 3 weeks after the preserve crew found the remains at Payne's Prairie's edge, all evidence, bone, fabric, bracelet, was sent to Florida's Forensic Identification Center in Tallahassee. The metal case was double-sealed, labeled in red, "BIO evidence. Do not open, without authorization." Inside, small sample bags sat in chilled foam. The case was handed to Dr. Karen Elliott, forensic examiner for unidentified persons, nicknamed the Doctor of the Silent. The lab, on the ground floor, stayed below 12 degrees Celsius. Karen, in nitrile gloves, opened a new file, Unidentified Juvenile Remains, Payne's Prairie 2006. She began basic identification, weighing bones, photographing with scale, reconstructing a skeletal outline on a steel table. Female, approximately 5 to 7 years, she scribbled with a mechanical pencil. No clear trauma, no evidence of acute violence. The floral fabric and bracelet were stored in a separate evidence box. In her notes corner, she added, "Pink bracelet engraved AJW, possibly personal identifier." Each step underwent dual independent checks. A young technician noted, "Bone heavily degraded, porous surface, likely long-term water exposure." Karen nodded at the soil spectrometry results. High organic content, consistent with swamp conditions. She placed a small femur fragment in a glass vial, labeled PP06237A, and sent it for DNA extraction. Results were discouraging. Despite 2 PCR attempts, the DNA was too fragmented for CODIS comparison. Karen frowned, exhaling slowly. 13 years in water and mud destroyed most cellular structure, she said. We can only store it, wait for better tech. The technician logged, DNA extraction, incomplete. Retained sample for reanalysis when feasible. Karen sat at her desk, drafting the official report. The first page read, Forensic Report. Case #06PP237 Subject, unknown female child, estimated age 5, 7 years. Location, Paynes Prairie Preserve, Alachua County, Florida. Condition, partial remains, consistent with long-term environmental exposure. Identifiers, pink plastic bracelet, floral fabric fragment. Status, unidentified. Pending future DNA sequencing. Signing, she paused. Strange, she murmured. A name no one knows. Just 3 scrawled letters on a bracelet. Outside the glass, Tallahassee's sky was gray, wind carrying late-year rain's dampness. That afternoon, transferring the file to cold storage, Karen met Ortiz, who'd reported the Gainesville find. Ortiz held the bracelet bag, inspecting it one last time before signing the handover. If this is really the 1993 girl, she said, we've spent over a decade just circling back. Karen nodded, voice low, and maybe another decade before we're sure. Per protocol, unidentified cases after 6 months went to FDLE's biological evidence vault, a -18 degrees Celsius basement room. Each evidence box got a barcode, logged digitally. As the technician placed the Paynes Prairie box on shelf 17, third row up, the screen read, Entry confirmed. Status, active storage. The electronic file closed with Karen Elliott's note, neat like all others, awaiting future technology. Time passed, other reports piling into cold case lists. Karen's office filled with blue-labeled boxes, color-coded for unidentified children. Some days, she stared at the computer's list of cold text. Unknown female, unidentified child, unresolved case. Each line was a life cut short, swallowed by silence. By late 2007, FDLE's budget cuts paused most cold case analyses. Karen protested but was powerless. The Paynes Prairie samples, among others, were moved deeper into main cold storage, set to minimal preservation to save power. Under faint fluorescent light, she watched a technician lock the vault. The steel clicked stark. Keep them, she whispered. Someday, they'll speak. The next spring, FDLE's summary report to units stated, Case #06PP237. Unidentified juvenile remains. DNA insufficient. No active investigation at this time. File retained under cold storage program. On the final page, below Dr. Karen Elliott's signature, a small, slanted handwritten note, still waiting. The vault door closed, lights dimmed, leaving a silver metal box with bones, floral fabric, and a pink bracelet, still as if sleeping, waiting for an era when tools could name what time had buried. Nearly 14 years later, March 2020, the COVID storm slowed Florida, but in FDLE's Tallahassee basement, machines hummed. Hundreds of unidentified cases joined a new state trial program with AAM Laboratories, a private firm specializing in next-generation sequencing, reading severely degraded DNA where old methods failed. Among cold case submissions, a small line read, #06PP237. Unidentified juvenile remains. Selected randomly by computer simulation. No one at FDLE thought it would rewrite a nearly 3-decade-old case. On April 17, 2020, 2 AAM technicians received FDLE's sealed box, containing a vial with a small femur fragment, labeled PP06237A. Lead examiner Dr. Evan Lurie, ex-FBI, oversaw gene reconstruction. Opening the vial in a sterile chamber, he eyed the sand-like bone and said, "If this tech can't save this sample, nothing will." Analysis took over a month. AAM's Illumina NovaSeq 6000 read billions of broken gene fragments. Each DNA segment, some just dozens of base pairs, was pieced into a clearer picture. When raw data emerged, Dr. Lurie and his team could hardly believe it. The chromosome structure showed a female, biological age 6-7, with a near-complete sequence. "We've never seen results this clear from such old bone," a technician recalled. On June 2, 2020, the gene data was sent to FDLE's forensic database for comparison with state missing persons files. Karen Elliott, now retired but consulting, was called back. Seeing case PP06237, she gave a sad smile. "I said they were waiting for us to learn how to listen." CODIS found no direct match. Sharon Willis's family DNA was never stored in 1993, but AAM persisted, uploading to an extended genealogical database, where millions of Americans voluntarily submit DNA for family tracing. Initial results suggested a link to the Willis family in Orlando, including a middle-aged woman, Sharon L. Willis, born 1964. FDLE contacted Sharon, who agreed without hesitation to provide a DNA sample. A saliva sample arrived in Tallahassee, labeled "Mother of Missing Child Avery J. Willis." When Dr. Lurie loaded the comparison, the screen flashed "Match confidence, 99.8%. Silence gripped the room, broken only by the hum of fans and pounding heartbeats. On July 14, 2020, FDLE issued an internal memo. DNA sequencing confirms identity of remains from Paynes Prairie as Avery Jean Willis. Missing child reported 1993, Gainesville, Florida. Case reopened for criminal investigation. Karen Elliott sat alone in her small office with the memo. She opened the old file, yellowed 1993 pages she'd copied. On the cover's corner, Lieutenant Rayner's faint note, "No further leads." She laid the new memo over it, voice trembling. "Now there are." Media wasn't notified, pending legal verification. Sharon was called to Alachua County's office. Hearing the results, she didn't cry. She sat still, hands gripping a coffee mug, eyes fixed on a white wall. "I always knew she never left," she said. "I just didn't know where she was lying." AAM's final report to FDLE by Dr. Lurie noted, "Sample recovered from femur bone PP06237A shows 99.8% match to DNA reference sample of Sharon L. Willis. Confidence threshold exceeds federal identification standard. Subject conclusively identified as Avery Jean Willis. That day, case #06PP237 was tagged in red, identified. A file once thought forever silent finally bore its true name. From FDLE's cold basement, Karen stepped into a bright hallway, Florida's afternoon sun piercing the glass. She paused, recalling her 2007 words, "Someday they'll speak." Now that voice came not from science or machines, but from a 6-year-old lost in a 1993 summer rain, whispering back after 27 years. When Avery Jean Willis's identity confirmation reached Alachua County Sheriff's Office, the old case was immediately reopened. Lieutenant Lydia Cole, the current lead, took charge. A meticulous, data-driven new generation investigator, she trusted science implicitly. On her first day with the file, she entered Gainesville's county building's ground floor archive, where thousands of open cases sat in dusty boxes. When the clerk handed her a faded brown file labeled #93FL147, Missing Child, Avery J. Willis, Lydia noted the thick dust. 27 years just to return to the start, she murmured, gloving up to open it. Inside were yellowed handwritten reports, scene logs, neighbor statements, photos of Waldo Road's backyard in the rain. Lydia read page by page, marking in red details to cross-check with modern data. In the May 14, 1993, scene report, she paused at a line. Tire track, mud imprint consistent with light pickup, possibly Dodge Ram series. Below, Lieutenant Rayner had noted, no full plate number retrieved. She flipped to witness statements. Mrs. Joanne Heller, a neighbor, reported seeing a silver pickup driving slowly around the houses before the girl vanished. A child mentioned a man in a soldier's shirt talking to Avery. Lydia marked each, then opened FDLE's updated digital database. From matched records, she found a 1993 note, Marcus D. Dane, former U.S. Marine, stationed Mayport Base, discharged January 1993. Under owned vehicles, 1987, Dodge Ram, silver, Florida plate 3, KX 224. Lydia sat still for seconds. Silver Dodge Ram, she repeated aloud, typing, cross-reference confirmed with 1993 witness statement. The only question left, where was Dane now? She sent an internal request to FDLE's data unit for Dane's residency, driver's license, and all related records. The system took nearly 3 minutes, then displayed Marcus Dean Dane, born 1962, once lived in Jacksonville, Florida, relocated to Texas, 1994. Military record, U.S. Marine, honorably discharged January, 1993. No Florida criminal record, a 2002 federal note added, deceased. Reported death in Longview, Texas, 2001. Lydia reread the last line. Dead, she echoed, but her tone held no relief, just a low note of frustration. If Dane was dead, legal pursuit ended, but the truth still needed uncovering. We may not have a killer to catch, she told her assistant, but we need to know what happened to that child. She reviewed old evidence logs. The 1993 inventory listed a nylon cord, duct tape roll, and muddy fabric, all sent to the lab but never DNA tested due to limited technology. Lydia requested FDLE's archive to check if the items remained. 2 days later, an email confirmed 3 items located under Case Archive 93 FL 147. Stored in sealed container, condition stable, available for new forensic processing. Perfect, Lydia whispered, eyes alight. She drafted a request for touch DNA analysis on the fabric and tape, a new technique extracting DNA from mere skin cells. That afternoon, she visited the old scene, the abandoned Waldo Road house, grass knee-high. The wooden gate sagged, the Willis sign nearly faded. Lydia stood silently, eyeing the fence where the small sandal was found. Moss and rainwater marked the damp ground. She closed her eyes, picturing that night, distant thunder, a mother running in the rain, a dog barking toward the dirt road. Opening her eyes, she faced that road, where a silver Dodge Ram once crept by. That evening, back at the office, Lydia opened a new digital case file, adding case hash 93 FL 147, reopened 2020, lead investigator. Lieutenant Lydia Cole summary. Following identification of remains via 2020 DNA sequencing, the case is reopened. Prior evidence suggests possible involvement of Marcus D. Dane, cross-referencing vehicle records and military discharge, requesting updated forensic testing on archived items. She saved the file, pausing before logging out. The screen's last 2 lines blinked, suspect, Marcus D. Dane, status. Unconfirmed involvement. Lydia typed a final note in red. Old lead revived. Check everything. Outside, Gainesville sank into June's damp, dark mirroring, that night 27 years ago when Avery Willis vanished. But now, in the investigators' hands, past pieces began aligning, and Marcus Dane's silver pickup emerged from time's fog, like a ghost from an old file. When Marcus Dane's military and vehicle records arrived from federal archives to FDLE, Lieutenant Lydia Cole was deep in minute details. She knew if Dane was tied to Avery's disappearance, he'd hidden the child, and in the 1990s fragmented data systems, such gaps were easily exploited. One morning, reviewing Jacksonville residency files, she spotted an odd detail in 1994 vital records. A legal adoption document, filed with Jacksonville's social services, listed Marcus D. Dane, single guardian, and a child, Ava Marie Dead. Born April 1988. The exact age Avery would be if alive. Lydia requested the original from Duval County's archive. 2 days later, a faded sealed yellow envelope arrived. Inside, a birth certificate copy, adoption form, and notarized certification. Dane's signature, distinctively slanted, matched his military file, and 1992 driver's license. Comparing under a magnifier, Lydia confirmed identical stroke ratios and angles, same person. What chilled her wasn't just the match, but the orchestrated legitimacy. Ava Marie dead was recorded as born at Duval County Hospital, but FDLE's check of birth logs found no such child. No hospital, no obstetrician, no death certificate, no transfer record. It seemed crafted to legitimize a child who didn't exist in the system or was taken from elsewhere. Lydia invited Karen Elliott, long involved in the case, to review the copy. Seeing Ava Marie dead, Karen said softly, "The dead could stand for Dane." He gave her his name. She noted the document's date, March 1994, 10 months after Avery vanished. Lydia nodded, eyes sharp. If true, he kept her nearly a year before faking adoption papers to legitimize her existence. The team traced the paper trail. The notarized form bore the signature of Pamela H. Crow, a social worker in Jacksonville from 1992. 1996. Investigated for illegal adoptions but never prosecuted, Lydia requested federal personnel trace Crow's current whereabouts. Result: deceased in a 2012 Georgia car accident. The link seemed severed, yet it deepened suspicions of a deliberate setup. FDLE's digital archive scanned the adoption papers seal, Duval County 1994. Technicians found subtle discrepancies, a fainter outline and official, misaligned by 1.2 mm, signs of a forged stamp. He might have printed it himself, a technician said, or had an inside contact. Lydia compiled findings in an internal report, concluding, 1994, Jacksonville adoption papers show signs of forgery. Child Ava Marie D. matches birth year of Avery Jean Willis, missing 1993. Marcus D. Dane's signature fully matches military records. Conclusion: high likelihood Dane used fake adoption to legitimize holding the victim. That afternoon, Lydia presented to the state investigation chief. After a silent pause, he said, "If he were alive, this warrants an arrest. Since he's dead, redirect, search what's left." A search warrant was approved within 2 hours, targeting Dane's old Jacksonville home, now owned by a young couple who bought it in 2004. The next morning, Lydia and 2 FDLE agents arrived. The small house sat at a quiet street's end, walls pale green, porch sagging. The new owners, startled by the warrant, stood at the door. "We're revisiting an old case," Lydia explained, voice gentle but firm. "Everything will be returned intact." Inside, the house was renovated, but the basement retained its old structure. Forensics found a patched cement wall, its paint distinct. A ground scanner signaled a hollow behind it. Technicians drilled a small hole, releasing damp air and old soil smell. Lydia watched, heart racing. "Open it," she said. The drill pierced the cement, revealing a 1-meter square hollow, no body, but a dusty wooden box inside. It held a notebook, a faded Polaroid, and children's items. A one-armed doll, small socks, and a floral fabric matching the Payne's Prairie find. Lydia, gloved, opened the notebook. Scrawled black ink read, "Ava likes playing outside. She doesn't cry anymore. Everything will be fine if we move." The final page was dated March 17, 1994. The day the fake adoption was filed. She looked at the forensic team. Voice catching, "We just touched his secret." The scene report ended with a brief line. "Evidence recovered from former residents of Marcus Dane suggests intentional concealment and falsified adoption documentation." Lydia signed, standing before the house as dusk lit its faded tiles. For the first time in nearly 30 years, truth took shape, and the wall's contents were just the beginning. The case file and evidence from Dane's old home shifted the investigation entirely. In residency records, Lydia Cole noted an overlooked detail. Dane rented a small mobile home in Jacksonville Beach from early 1994, months before filing the fake adoption. The lease, signed with Shoreline Park Rentals, was near Beach Boulevard's quiet, isolated neighborhood. Lydia realized if Avery, or Ava Marie D., from the forged papers, was held by Dane. This could be the actual holding site before his Texas move. She requested FDLE and Jacksonville's property office confirm if the mobile home still existed. Fortunately, Shoreline Park remained active, and Lot 27B, Dane's old rental, was now a storage unit. The park owner, Howard Myers, a silver-haired man from Neptune Beach, cooperated. "I remember that name," he said, reviewing records. "Tall guy, polite, but not friendly. Stayed less than half a year, left some junk. I had it locked up and left it." The next morning, Lydia and FDLE's forensic team arrived. The mobile home sat at the park's edge, its metal walls rusted, surrounded by waist-high weeds. The front door's lock was rusted, but easily broken with a new key. Inside smelled of mold, rotting wood, and sea salt. The main room, barely 15 square meters, held an iron bed, empty wooden cabinet, and rusted gas stove. "No one's lived here in years," a technician noted. Scanning the floor, a metal detector pinged near the kitchen. Lydia shined a light, spotting a pine floorboard, discolored from the rest. She signaled a stop, carefully prying it up. Beneath dust and fine sand was a small wooden compartment, 20 centimeters deep, handcrafted with rusted nails. Inside were two items, a green stuffed dinosaur and an old coloring book. Lydia's heart raced. She recognized the toy, big plastic eyes, fishbone-stitched belly, the Mr. Rex Sharon Willis described in 1993. Avery carried that little dinosaur everywhere. The coloring book featured My Little Pony, its first page scrawled with marker. Avery, a childish script, the A. Slightly slanted, matching the alphabet sample from the teacher's file in the missing persons report. Lydia's grip tightened, speechless. All the years, all the theories, seemed to converge in this moment. The evidence was sealed, on site. At FDLE, the forensic team began DNA sampling. Rex's inner fabric, technicians extracted a small amount of old saliva-soaked fiber from the coloring book's page, a faint sweat-based fingerprint. Both samples were sent to Tallahassee's biology lab, where Dr. Evan Lurie, who recovered the Payne's Prairie bone DNA, took direct charge. 3 days later, Lydia got a call from Lurie. His voice was calm but heavy. "We have results." In the meeting room, Lurie presented a brief report. Biological material from the stuffed toy yielded a 100% DNA match to Avery Jean Willis's genetic profile. He pointed to a chart on the screen. "No doubt, she was in that mobile home, at least long enough to leave biological traces." The room fell silent. Lydia rested her hand on the file, voice slow. "So after abducting Avery, he brought her here, renamed her, and planned to legitimize raising her with fake papers." Karen Elliott, seated nearby, nodded faintly. "And these items are remnants of that makeshift life. He might have thought changing her name would keep her hidden forever." 50L logged this as the first physical evidence confirming the victim was with Marcus Dane post-abduction. The official report to Florida's prosecutor stated, "Forensic DNA analysis confirms biological material recovered from stuffed toy and coloring book found at former residence of Marcus D. Dane matches Avery Jean Willis, missing child reported 1993. Conclusion: victim resided at this location post-abduction. After the meeting, Lydia drove to Jacksonville Beach, standing alone before the old mobile home. The distant ocean murmured, wind carrying salt and a somber past. She looked at her hands, recalling opening the wooden compartment, the dusty, heavy, surreal feeling. "Avery was here," she whispered, as if to the wind. "She lived, laughed, played with that dinosaur, and then, suddenly gone." Inside her, the usual cold resolve of an investigator gave way to something else, a simmering anger. "He thought he buried it all," she thought. "But every speck of dust knows how to speak." That night, back in Gainesville, Lydia updated the system. Update case #93 FL147, evidence recovered at Jacksonville Beach trailer, confirms victim presence. Transition to suspect movement tracking. Initiate interstate inquiry. Then she added a private note. Not in the report. The child was found once. This time, we won't let her be lost again. A week after the DNA results from the Mr. Rex toy, an unexpected call reached Lieutenant Lydia Cole's office. An elderly man's shaky voice introduced himself as Earl Henderson, a 1993 Shoreline Park resident, 2 lots from Marcus Dane's mobile home. He'd seen local news about Avery Willis, Gainesville missing girl, identified by DNA, and had something I never forgot. Lydia asked him to come to the Jacksonville field office. That afternoon, he arrived with a yellowed envelope, sealed with brown tape. He opened it, revealing a single Polaroid, white edges faded, top corner torn. It showed a girl, about 6, blonde, in a floral dress, playing in sand at St. Augustine Beach. Behind her, a wooden sign read Pier Entrance, May 1993. Henderson said he was fishing that morning. Saw a man in an old military shirt nearby with the child. I thought they were father and daughter, he said. But after the missing girl news, I kept the photo, meant to turn it in, but hesitated. What if I was wrong? His voice broke. I never forgot those eyes. Now seeing the news, I'm sure it's her. Lydia took the photo with gloved hands, the room's light reflecting off its glossy surface. She recognized the familiar heft of 600-type Polaroid film, common in the early 90s. If real, this could be living proof. Avery survived post-abduction, at least days. She sent it to FDLE Tallahassee's imaging lab. 4 days later, results returned. Imaging expert Dr. Miles Roth's report stated, no signs of editing, splicing, or restaging. Original Polaroid 600 film, production code matches April 1993 batch. Optical marks and silver halide surface intact. Light analysis confirmed the photo was taken mid-morning, clear weather, sunlight matching St. Augustine Beach's May 17, 1993. Meteorological data. 3 days after Avery was reported missing, magnifying the girl's face, details emerged. A slight smile, small nose, faint flower-shaped birthmark on her right cheek. Facial recognition software, Cognitech, compared it to Avery's 1992 kindergarten photo. The screen displayed, facial match probability, 98.9%. Not only the face, but the dress's floral pattern, matched the fabric from Payne's Prairie and Dane's wooden box. All 3 samples, aligned in the new evidence file, formed a seamless timeline: the dress, the photo, the remains. Lydia held the enlarged printout, standing in the empty meeting room. The beach and sand behind the girl were vivid, Florida's sunlight blindingly bright. She whispered, almost to herself, she was taken from Gainesville. He brought her to St. Augustine. And someone took this photo. She turned to Karen Elliott, silent for a while, who nodded. The photo's real. It means Avery was alive after leaving Waldo Road. FDLE's official report stated, photograph submitted by witness E. Henderson, verified as authentic, subject depicted consistent with missing child Avery Jean Willis. Film production code and lighting analysis confirmed date range May 1993. Evidence indicates victim was alive, post-abduction. As Henderson signed the submission log, he said softly to Lydia, if I'd known sooner, things might have been different, she replied quietly. What matters is you spoke now. That night, Lydia sat alone in her office. Under the yellow lamp, the Polaroid showed the girl smiling on a vast beach. She was alive when it was taken, a small but weighty whisper from the past. Lydia knew the investigation had crossed memory's boundary into final truth. Avery Jean Willis's last journey began on that sunlit shore. The St. Augustine Beach Polaroid was the final piece shifting Marcus Dane's file from suspicion to federal criminal territory. On October 12, 2020, over 27 years after Avery Jean Willis vanished, FDLE and FBI Jacksonville Field Office held a special joint meeting with investigators, forensic experts, and behavioral analysts. Lieutenant Lydia Cole reviewed the evidence chain. DNA matching from the stuffed toy, forged adoption papers, and the St. Augustine photo, proving Avery lived days post-abduction. All pointed to one name, Marcus Dean Dane, former Marine, discharged January 1993, skilled in survival, familiar with Florida's coastal areas. When the meeting room's screen lit up, Lydia displayed Dane's military photo, angular face, gray eyes, cold expression. Below was a summary, D.O.B., December 8, 1962, Norfolk, Virginia service, U.S. Marine Corps, 1981-1993. Specialty, logistics, vehicle operations, basic field training. Disciplinary record, none. Post-discharge residence, Jacksonville, Florida. Lydia stated clearly, Dane knew Sharon Willis, the victim's mother, when she worked at a convenience store near Mayport Base. They met around early 1992, split after months, due to Dane's possessive behavior, often stalking her. He was discharged soon after. FBI agents jotted notes. One asked, "Any psychological records from the military?" Lydia nodded, pulling a military medical file copy. In the evaluation, psychological profile, a Mayport-based psychologist noted, subject exhibits traits of obsessive attachment and control, especially towards perceived familial units. Displays difficulty accepting rejection or abandonment, underlined in red. Potential risk of parental abductor syndrome under stress conditions. FBI behavioral analyst Dr. Eileen Murrow explained, this syndrome often appears in those with control disorders, believing they're saving or owning a child as their own. With Avery, he might have convinced himself he was protecting her from her mother. Lydia paused. It aligned with Sharon Willis's account. In their last meeting at the store, Dane said, "The kid's like me. She needs a real father." Further analysis showed Dane's preparation. He left his Gainesville apartment a week before Avery's disappearance, sold his old car to buy an unregistered silver Dodge Ram, moved temporarily to Jacksonville, and within 10 months crafted fake adoption papers, flawless enough to bypass 1994's system. He didn't kidnap out of hate or ransom, Lydia said. He kidnapped to create a fake families with a child he believed was his. The FBI's behavioral report, completed in 3 days, began subject, Marcus Dean Dane classification, parental abductor, high risk, potential homicidal outcome, psychological profile, obsessive, compulsive traits, control-driven, likely sociopathic empathy deficit, displays delusional parental ideology, perceives abduction as rescue, skill set, logistics, concealment, falsification of documents, vehicle operation, survival training, threat assessment. If alive, capable of identity alteration, high mobility, and armed proficiency. Though Dane was reported dead in a 2001 Texas accident, no valid death certificate existed in federal systems. The only record, signed by a Longview local agency, lacked autopsy or DNA evidence. An FBI agent noted, if he faked his death, he could have used other papers or someone died under his name. The remark silenced the room. Lydia said, "We can't assume he's dead just because of a paper." The case was now federal, with 3 main charges: interstate child abduction, federal document forgery, and identity falsification. On October 20, 2020, the FBI issued a federal warrant of arrest for Marcus Dane, with a detailed description and forensic 3D rendering from old photos. The warrant went to all federal and military law enforcement, noting possible alias Martin Dean, Mark Danner, or any MDD derivation. At FDLE headquarters, Lydia eyed the warrant copy on the investigation board, a 3D rendering of Dane at about 60, gaunt, gray beard, sunken eyes. Below, in red, wanted, federal fugitive, kidnapping, false adoption, endangerment of minor. She sighed. He might be dead, she told Karen Elliott, but now he's wanted, as if alive. And if he's out there, he'll know we're coming. The FBI opened a file coded Project Silver Ram, named for Dane's abduction vehicle. They reviewed all Dodge pickup registrations from 1993, 2001, checking traces in Texas, Louisiana, and Georgia. Immigration joined, searching for identity or passport changes matching Dane's profile. An FBI internal memo noted, despite presumed death in 2001, absence of physical evidence and continuous anomalies in DMV database suggest subject may have staged own death. Investigation remains active. That night, Lydia stayed late, staring at the computer's image sequence. Dane's stern military portrait, his notebook entries from the wooden box, the St. Augustine Polaroid. Each frame marked a man sliding from humanity. He didn't kill her out of hate, Lydia thought. He did it to keep her forever. She printed a new case summary, the final line in bold. Case status, active federal warrant. Subject, Marcus D. and Dane. Next step, trace movements, Texas 1994, 2001. She paused, adding a handwritten note. No doubt now, this was a control-driven abduction, and he never truly vanished. As the office lights dimmed, Dane's gray eyes stared from the pinned board, as if waiting for someone to enter a game he never wanted to end. January 2021. 3 months after the federal warrant, new data from Florida's DMV flagged an anomaly. A middle-aged man, Martin Dean Danner, matching a suspected Dane alias, renewed a driver's license in Mayport, near Jacksonville's coast, where Dane once served. The DMV's automated facial photo triggered a 94% match with Dane's original file via FBI's facial recognition gateway. Lieutenant Lydia Cole received the report at 7 a.m. She stared at the blurry screen image, silver hair, patchy beard, but unmistakable gray eyes. He never left Florida, she whispered. She alerted FBI Jacksonville field office. Within hours, a meeting approved Operation Silver Ram, Phase 2. Apprehend the suspect at a Mayport fishing village mobile home, rented under Martin Danner. At dawn on January 23, 2021, a 12-person federal task force, FBI, FDLE, and Duval County Police quietly surrounded the area. The silver-gray mobile home sat at a narrow road's end by the pier, sand and grass dusting its base. Waves mixed with distant engines. Lydia, in body armor, stood at the command point, watching her clock as a red signal blinked. 5:42 a.m. Go. A short radio command sounded, the steel door was breached, and the team rushed in. 3 seconds of silence, then an agent's voice, clear, subject in custody. Marcus Dane, or Martin Danner, stood in the small room, in an old t-shirt, hands raised. He didn't resist, only stared blankly. You took longer than I thought, he said softly, his hoarse voice echoing the tone from old military interview tapes. As backup secured and cuffed him, Lydia entered. The room reeked of salt and antiseptic. On a wooden table were stacks of papers, birth certificates, passports, licenses, all with different names, same face. A small bookshelf held frames of children, blonde girls in floral dresses, aged 5, 7. A plastic box contained Polaroids sorted by year, mostly park or beach shots. In a corner, a thick briefcase was labeled Adoption Records, 1993, 1998. Each paper went into evidence bags. Among them, forensics found a forged birth certificate for Ava Marie Dane, born May 10, 1987. Avery Jean Willis's birth date. Under father, Marcus Dean Dane's signature. Mother was blank. An FBI agent opened a small drawer near the bed, pulling out a brown-covered photo album. Inside glued photos, many faded, but the first page had clear black ink. Our first summer together, 1993. Below was Avery in Dane's lap at St. Augustine Beach, the same Polaroid submitted. Lydia sat across from him as the evidence team left. She spoke slowly. Marcus Dane, you're under arrest for federal kidnapping, document forgery, and identity falsification. You have the right to remain silent. He cut in, no need for rights. I know. She looked at him. Avery Jean Willis. What did you do to her? Dane leaned back, eyes indifferent. I didn't kidnap. I took her from a place where she wasn't loved. Lydia kept her voice steady. She was 6. You forged papers, gave her a new name. Hid her for nearly a year. That's a crime, not salvation. He gave a tired smile. You wouldn't understand. She was mine. Sharon once said, she might be mine, then denied it. I just brought her home. His words chilled the room. Lydia signaled to record everything. Any proof she was your biological child? He replied. Blood. I knew. 2 days later, at Jacksonville's Federal Detention Center, Dane agreed to a DNA sample. AAM Laboratories results, returned in a week, stunned everyone. Dane's DNA matched Avery Jean Willis's by 50%. Paternity index, 99.97% probability of biological father. His wild claim was true. Avery was Marcus Dane's daughter from a brief 1986 relationship with Sharon Willis, when she worked near Mayport Base. When Lydia visited Sharon with the results, she sat silent for a long time. No tears, just a pale, exhausted smile. I knew deep down, but didn't want to believe. He always said she was his, that I wasn't fit to raise her, and he proved it by taking everything. Marcus Dane's formal interrogation took place at Tallahassee's federal facility on February 17, 2021. The room was stark. Metal table, 2 chairs, a recorder, and a one-way mirror he knew was watched. Lydia Cole sat across, joined by FBI behavioral analyst Aileen Murrow. Dane entered in an orange jumpsuit, wrists cuffed, face unnervingly calm. We're recording this interrogation, Lydia said evenly. You have the right to remain silent and an attorney. Dane leaned back, eyes tired but defiant. No lawyer, I've got nothing left to hide. The questioning began at 9:10 a.m., lasting nearly 8 hours. Lydia started simply, why did you take Avery from Gainesville in 1993? He answered readily, voice soft, like an old story. I saved her. She wasn't happy there. Sharon was busy, always yelling, and her new man drank constantly. I couldn't stand by. She needed a father. Saved, Lydia emphasized. A 6-year-old vanishes in the rain, torn from her mother, and you call that saving? Dane gave a faint smile. You see it as an outsider. I saw it through blood. She was mine. Sharon never gave me a chance. I brought her home. Aileen Murrow cut in, voice like a breeze. You say home, but where? Gainesville? Jacksonville? Mayport? Dane rubbed his left wrist. A stress habit. We went places. I just wanted her free, where no one could find her. How long did you live with Avery? Lydia asked. Don't recall. A year, maybe more. She loved the beach, swimming. I taught her to fish, to light fires. Then what? Then his eyes clouded. We had to leave. Someone recognized us. When did you leave? Maybe 1995, he said slowly, lips tightening. Aileen leaned in, and where did she go after? Dane didn't answer, staring at the wall's faint reflection. Lydia repeated the question. He stayed silent nearly 2 minutes, then whispered, she got sick. I didn't want anyone hurting her. I didn't want her to hurt anymore. Aileen scribbled, whispering to Lydia. Evasion, he's controlling the timeline. Lydia nodded, shifting. Why forge the adoption papers? To protect her, he said. With papers, no one could take her. You know what Sharon said? I wasn't fit to be a father. I showed them wrong. For hours, Dane repeated, saved her from a bad place. He detailed forging the birth certificate, creating Ava Marie D., renting the Jacksonville Beach trailer. But on 1995, he dodged. We went farther. I don't recall. It doesn't matter. Each time, his voice grew lower, more halting. Early afternoon, Lydia confronted directly. You said Avery got sick. What did you do when she was sick? Dane stared at the steel table. After a pause, he said, barely audible to the recorder. I held her. I didn't want her scared. She died in your arms, didn't she? Lydia asked. He looked up, eyes trembling briefly, then a tired smile. You wouldn't understand. I didn't kill her. I just didn't let anyone take her from me again. Aileen signaled to pause the recording. Outside, Lydia exhaled. He's confessing his way roundabout, but enough. Aileen nodded. His language shows awareness, no loss of control. He knows 1995 is the end marker and avoids it. His didn't want her to hurt is justification. He's responsible for her death. The interrogation resumed until nearly 5 p.m. Lydia restarted the recorder, asking, "Anything you want to say to Sharon Willis?" Dane stared at the mirror. I did what I had to. She'll never understand." "Do you think Avery would forgive you?" Lydia asked, softer. This time, he didn't answer. He turned away, silent for the session's remainder. When the interrogation ended, after 8 grueling hours, Lydia stepped into the hallway, clutching the transcript. It contained hundreds of justifications, dozens of silences, and one glaring truth. Marcus Dane felt no remorse. He believed he was a savior. Aileen Murrow's behavioral analysis, sent later, concluded, "Subject displays classic avoidance markers around temporal anchor 1995. Language indicates concealment of a terminal event. Self-justification consistent with parental abductor syndrome and delusional moral rationalization. Statements internally inconsistent but sufficient for prosecution under federal abduction and homicide statutes." In the final report to the Justice Department, Lydia typed the last line, her hand trembling slightly. "Contradictory statements, but sufficient for conviction." Marcus Dane admitted, though not in words, that Avery Jean Willis was never allowed to leave his grasp, alive or dead. June 2021, courtroom 4B of the Duval County Federal Courthouse was packed. Press, television, and faces who'd followed Avery Jean Willis's case for nearly 3 decades filled the room. At the defendant's table, Marcus Dane, 59, in an orange jumpsuit, wrists lightly cuffed, sat upright with eerie calm. His gaunt face, white hair and unyielding gray eyes were the same as when arrested in Mayport. Behind the wooden barrier, Sharon Willis sat silently, clutching her daughter's old school photo. Before her was a thick file of 30 years' investigation, and finally, justice had a chance to speak. Federal prosecutor David Harlan opened the trial, his voice resolute, echoing through the room. "Ladies and gentlemen of the court, we are here not just for a kidnapping, but for a deliberate, prolonged, and meticulously calculated act. One that took a 6-year-old's life and left this community waiting 27 years for the truth." On the screen, he presented the evidence chain, DNA confirming Avery Jean Willis as Marcus Dane's biological daughter. The pink bracelet engraved AJW, floral fabric, and bone fragment from Payne's Prairie, fully matching Avery's DNA. The St. Augustine Beach Polaroid, verified by lighting and film code, showing the victim alive at least 3 days post-abduction. The 1994 forged adoption papers, with Dane's signature matching his military records, proving concealment and legitimization of the abducted child. Evidence from Dane's home and mobile trailer, the coloring book, Mr. Rex stuffed toy, and notebook detailing moving away, all matching 1993 witness description. Each piece displayed, each notebook line shown, made the room heavier. Harlan continued, "The defendant didn't just kidnap. He built a false world, a parallel life, where he played savior father. But that wasn't love, it was possession. He stole her freedom, identity, and ultimately her life, the child he called his own." The defense argued, Dane was mentally disturbed and believed he acted out of love. But the prosecution countered with the interrogation recording. Dane answered clearly, aware of his rights and consequences. "He wasn't insane," Harlan said. "He believed the law couldn't touch him." Given a chance to speak, Marcus stood, voice low and hoarse. "I didn't kill her. I saved her from a bad mother and this world. If I'm guilty, it's of loving too much." The courtroom fell silent. Sharon Willis bowed her head, tears falling on the old photo. Lydia Cole, in the witness row, stared unblinking. She knew this wasn't love, it was possessive instinct, destroying 2 lives. The prosecution lasted 2 days. On the 3rd, the court released Dane's statement analysis, his 1995 evasions, and she got sick. "I held her," were deemed indirect admissions. Though no full body was recovered, the physical evidence, statements, and forged records sufficed for 3 federal charges: interstate child abduction, forgery, and use of federal documents, obstruction of investigation, and concealment of victim identity. Reading the final conclusion, Harlan's voice was slow but firm. Marcus Dane planned, abducted, hid her, forged an identity, and stayed silent for nearly 30 years. No one has the right to call that love. It's the crime of a man who thought he was God. The jury deliberated 2 hours before returning a unanimous verdict: guilty on all counts. Marcus Dane didn't react, only nodded slightly, as if expecting it. Judge Elena Ruiz delivered the sentence, her voice stern and clear. Defendant Marcus Dane is sentenced to 35 years in federal prison without parole. The court recognizes the acts of kidnapping, forgery, obstruction, and severe consequences leading to the death of minor Avery Jean Willis. This is not just a sentence for one man's crimes, but a testament to justice's persistence, even after nearly 30 years. The gavel struck 3 times. In that moment, Sharon let out a soft sob, her trembling hand touching her daughter's photo. Lydia approached, resting a hand on her shoulder, silent. Both watched as guards led Dane out. He glanced back briefly, eyes empty, no remorse, no fear, just the void of a man who destroyed his own family in a delusional grip of possession. Outside, Duval's summer rain poured, chilling the pavement. Lydia looked at the gray sky, saying softly to Sharon, 30 years, and she's finally called by her true name. Sharon squeezed her hand, whispering, she has justice. In the final Justice Department report, Lydia wrote, Case #93FL147, Avery Jean Willis. Conviction achieved, sentence, 35 years, federal imprisonment. Below, she added a small note, closing a nearly 3-decade journey, and justice, though late, has finally taken shape. Avery Jean Willis's story isn't just a closed criminal case after 29 years, it's a mirror to modern America's issues where trust, isolation, and psychological wounds can lead to tragedy. Throughout the investigation, from Gainesville's rainy 1993 night to the 2021 Duval County trial, we see a stark yet terrifying truth. Crime doesn't always come from strangers. Marcus Dane wasn't an anonymous criminal, but someone Sharon trusted, a soldier who served his country. He believed he saved his daughter, that love justified kidnapping, concealment, and stripping a child's freedom. His isolation, lack of psychological support, and warped fatherhood turned a disciplined Marine into a criminal. In today's America, where thousands of children vanish yearly, many by blood relatives, this story warns of parental abductor syndrome's consequences and the need for emotional education, behavioral control, and psychological intervention for veterans and conflicted families. Moreover, FDLE's persistence, advanced DNA technology, and investigators like Lydia Cole show the power of American science and justice, no matter how long truth is found. The final lesson is simple. Justice never fades, only needing someone persistent enough to reach it. And love cannot justify destroying another, no matter the guise. If you believe justice, even delayed, is worth finding, subscribe to our channel to join us in exploring cases closed after decades. Thank you for following Avery Jean Willis's story. See you in the next video of True Crime Cases Thought Long Asleep.